The wind arrives first. It sweeps across the plains of northern Saskatchewan with nothing to stop it, nothing to soften its edge. Here, snow does not fall gently. It is lifted, driven, armed, scraping across the frozen ground in ghostly sheets that erase roads, swallow fences, and blur the horizon into a single, relentless white. At -40 degrees Celsius, the air itself becomes an adversary. Each breath crystallizes instantly, a column of vapor that freezes and fades before it can disperse. Moisture hardens on eyelashes. Exposed skin begins to burn in seconds, not from heat, but from violent theft. Frostbite can consume fingers, cheeks, and ears in minutes. The body, built for balance, is forced to retreat. Across the tundra, the Arctic wind howls without obstruction. It snakes through open valleys, lashes frozen lakes, and collides with ice-covered forests. The sound is not only heard, it is felt, pressing against wood, metal, bone. Wind chill drives temperatures even lower, turning 40 below zero into something colder, something elemental. Ice forms with patient precision. It coats branches in a glassy armor, encases power lines in fragile cylinders, seals lakes beneath meters of hardened surface. During an ice storm, rain falls only to freeze on contact, transforming trees into crystal sculptures. Branches snap under the strain. The forest creaks and groans like an ancient structure under siege. From above, drone footage reveals an expanse that appears endless, white, stretching beyond sight, broken only by the dark veins of rivers, now motionless. Roads vanish beneath drifting snow. Highways become corridors of uncertainty, where gusts erase visibility in seconds. A whiteout descends without warning. Sky and ground merge. Direction dissolves. There is no up or down, only blind exposure. Silence follows the storm. It is not peace, it is pressure. Snow absorbs sound, submerging the world in stillness. No rustle of leaves is heard. Water does not flow. Even the air feels heavier, as if the atmosphere itself has thickened with the cold. Under that silence, ice shifts and fractures with sudden cracks, like rifles, echoing across frozen lakes. This is winter in its most absolute form. There are no concessions here, no gradual relief. The cold does not negotiate, does not tire, does not yield. It sculpts the land with invisible hands, carving drifts into towering ridges, polishing rock faces, sealing the ground beneath permafrost that has not thawed in millennia. For months, daylight weakens and retreats. The sun arcs low on the horizon, offering light but little heat. Shadows stretch long and blue across the snowfield, and temperatures fall even further as night descends. This is not a season. It is a force. An empire of ice that dominates forests, plains, mountains, and coasts alike. Welcome to Canada, where winter does not arrive, it rains. Canada in winter is not a single landscape. It is a continent reshaped by cold. To the south, the boreal forest stretches in dark, unbroken bands, one of the largest intact forests on Earth. Black spruce and Scots pine rise in patient rows, their branches bowed under fresh snow. Snow slides downward in soft spirals, settling on needles designed to shed its weight. The forest does not resist winter, it absorbs it. Sound fades here. Wind seems to soften as it weaves between trunks spaced like cathedral columns. Farther north, the trees thin. Then they disappear. The tundra begins where the forest yields. It is a vast open expanse where shrubs cling to the ground and the earth remains locked in permafrost. A soil frozen not for a season, but for thousands of years. Beneath the surface lies ground that has never fully thawed since the last ice age. This land anchors the landscape with permanent force, shaping rivers, determining which plants can grow, and limiting how deep roots can reach. Ice fog rises from frozen rivers when air temperatures fall below zero. It drifts low across the terrain, blurring the edges of hills and softening the horizon. Above, in the Arctic sky, sunlight filters through suspended ice crystals, forming luminous halos, perfect circles of pale fire around a distant, weakened sun. To the west, the Rocky Mountains rise in defiance of the plains. Their peaks climb toward the sky, covered in snow that gathers in cornices and clings to steep rock faces. Avalanches carve sudden scars into the slopes. Valleys collect cold air like basins, holding it in place long after storms have passed. Altitude intensifies the authority of winter. Between forest and mountain lie the Great Lakes. Great Bear Lake, in the Northwest Territories, freezes into a white plain so vast it appears oceanic. Along the shores of Lake Superior, waves crash and freeze mid-motion, sculpting irregular formations that resemble shattered glass. Entire coastlines transform into intricate palaces of ice, built not by hands, but by temperature and time. This is a land shaped by glaciation. During the last ice age, massive ice sheets pressed against the continent, grinding rock into sediment, carving valleys and hollowing basins that would later fill with water. The imprint of that ancestral cold still defines Canada's geography. The bedrock beneath the snow remembers it, and across these frozen expanses, signs of movement emerge. A single line of tracks curves across untouched snow. Caribou hooves have pierced the surface crust, leaving deliberate impressions that stretch to the horizon. Even here, where wind erodes the land and permafrost holds it firm, life moves with intention. Geography dictates everything. Where shelter can be found, where food can persist beneath the snow, where rivers remain liquid long enough to sustain fish. Cold shapes the architecture of survival long before the first predator or prey appears on screen. In winter, Canada is not merely covered in ice, it is built by it. But within this frozen cathedral, life does not retreat, it adapts. Cold is not simply the absence of heat, it is its active removal. At -40 degrees Celsius, the human body begins to lose heat as soon as it is exposed. Heat flows predictably, obeying the laws of thermodynamics. It always moves from warmer objects to colder ones. In winter, that transfer becomes relentless. There are three main ways the body loses heat. The first is conduction, direct contact. When bare skin touches metal in extreme cold, heat is transferred instantly to the object. Ice forms on the steel. Moisture freezes upon contact with it. Skin can adhere within seconds. The colder the surface, the faster the exchange. The body becomes a reservoir that empties. The second is convection. Moving air absorbs heat. Wind chill is not a separate temperature, but an effect. As wind passes over exposed skin, it strips away the thin layer of warmer air the body creates as insulation. By continuously replacing that layer, heat loss accelerates. At -40 degrees Celsius with strong winds, exposed skin can freeze in less than 10 minutes. The third is radiation. Even in still air, the body emits infrared heat, energy invisible to the human eye, but visible through thermal imaging. In a thermal camera, a human figure glows brightly against the blue void of a frozen landscape. That glow is energy escaping into space. In this environment, breathing becomes a visible test of survival. Warm air leaves the lungs, and condenses instantly into vapor, rising in pale clouds before crystallizing and dissolving. Eyelashes frost with moisture from the air. Beards stiffen with ice. Vapor rises from exposed skin like smoke from cooling embers. Snow itself is deceptive. Through a macro lens, each crystal appears geometric and precise. Hexagonal structures formed by water molecules, arranged in perfect symmetry. Their beauty hides their effect. Snow traps air. Fresh powder can insulate the ground. But compacted snow conducts cold efficiently, transferring it to boots, paws, and hooves. When tissue temperature drops below freezing, frostbite begins. Ice crystals form within cells, piercing membranes and disrupting structure. Blood vessels constrict in an attempt to conserve body heat, sacrificing fingers and toes first. Skin pales and then hardens. Sensation fades. If core body temperature drops below 35 degrees Celsius, hypothermia occurs. Shivering begins as muscles contract rapidly to generate heat. As temperatures fall further, confusion sets in. Coordination fails. The body, in its attempt to conserve energy, slows its own systems. The heart weakens. Organs begin to fail. Cold does not attack with violence. It subtracts. It extracts energy molecule by molecule, breath by breath, until biological systems can no longer compensate. It is physics operating without emotion. And yet in Canada's frozen expanses, survival continues. Creatures endure not because they defy these laws, but because they have evolved within them. For humans, it is lethal. For wildlife, it is a trial intrinsic to evolution. Winter does not empty Canada, it transforms it. Far north of the major cities, small communities sit beneath skies that glow pale blue under the low arc of the winter sun. Houses rise above snowdrifts, their walls lined with thick insulation and triple-glazed windows that guard against relentless heat transfer. Smoke rises steadily from chimneys, thin grey columns dissolving into frigid air. Inside, warmth hums quietly. Boilers working against a temperature difference that can exceed 22 degrees. Outside, life continues. Children walk carefully along snowy paths on their way to school, their faces framed by fur-lined hoods. Each exhalation turns to white vapor, boots crunch against compacted ice. Movement is deliberate, efficient. No gesture is wasted. In this cold, time outdoors is not measured carelessly, but consciously. For Indigenous communities of the North, winter is not a novelty or a spectacle. It is continuity. Entire generations have learned to read the snow as others read maps, distinguishing stable ice from thin, understanding wind patterns, and recognizing when a storm is forming long before clouds gather. Knowledge is not theoretical. It is inherited, refined, and lived. Fishing villages on the ice appear on frozen lakes like temporary settlements. Small cabins stand anchored over holes, with lines descending into dark water beneath meters of ice. Beneath the surface, fish continue their quiet existence, insulated from the wind by the same ice that challenges those above. Patience replaces urgency. Survival becomes rhythm. Transportation adapts as well. Snowmobiles glide across open terrain where roads disappear beneath snow. In the far north, ice roads, temporary highways carved across frozen lakes and tundra, allow heavy trucks to transport fuel and supplies to remote communities. Massive vehicles move cautiously over surfaces that must remain solid. Beneath their tires lies water held only by temperature. Winter clothing becomes engineering. Layer upon layer traps air close to the body, reducing heat loss through convection. Both synthetic fibers and animal furs create barriers against wind and moisture. Gloves, boots, insulated parkas, every detail is designed not for fashion, but for physics. Yet resilience here is practical, not romantic. Power outages are dangerous. Storms isolate communities for days. Frostbite remains a risk. Mechanical failures in remote terrain can escalate quickly. Preparation is constant. Humans survive winter in Canada not by conquering it, but by respecting its limits. Houses are built thicker. Vehicles are winterized. Travel is calculated. Firewood is stacked months in advance. Supplies are stored long before temperatures fall. Cold shapes routine as much as it shapes architecture, technology, and tradition. But even the best insulated walls cannot rival the mastery of those born to this cold. Beyond cities and frozen roads, beyond the reach of ice roots and chimney smoke, the boreal forest thickens into something older, quieter, and entirely self-sufficient. This is Canada's largest terrestrial biome, a vast expanse of spruce, fir, birch, and pine, stretching from Yukon to Newfoundland. In winter, it becomes a monochrome world of shadows and snow, where survival moves on padded feet. A bull moose emerges among the trees. It is colossal, nearly 2 meters tall and weighing more than half a ton. Frost clings to the long hairs of its coat. Each step sinks into powder snow. Its long legs are designed precisely for this terrain. Where deer would stumble, the moose advances. Its wide hooves spread outward, distributing weight like natural snowshoes. It lowers its massive head to browse on willow and birch branches that rise above the snowline. In winter, its diet shifts from aquatic plants to woody stems. Digestion slows. Movement conserves energy. Even giants must calculate calories. Nearby, almost invisible against the white, a snowshoe hare pauses. Only a few months ago, its fur was brown, blending perfectly with autumn undergrowth. Now it is pure white, except for the black tips of its ears, an evolutionary response to shortening daylight. The change is not aesthetic. It is camouflage designed by time. Its large hind feet distribute its weight across soft snow, allowing it to launch quickly where predators lurk. The hare freezes. A shadow glides silently between the trunks. The Canada lynx moves with deliberate precision. Its larger paws, covered in dense fur, act like built-in snowshoes. Tufted ears tilt forward. Its pale coat blends into the muted palette of the forest. The lynx depends heavily on the snowshoe hare. Their populations rise and fall in near synchrony. Predator and prey bound in a dance measured in years. The lynx lowers its body, its shoulders shifting slowly beneath thick fur. Each step is careful, minimizing sound. The distance closes. Muscles tense. The hare bolts. For seconds, the forest erupts in motion, white against white. The predator bounding forward, the prey zigzagging through young trees. Snow sprays into the air. Then, stillness returns. Whether the chase ends in escape or capture, the balance continues. Neither cruelty nor mercy governs this exchange. Only necessity. Elsewhere, a red fox listens. Its ears rotate independently. detecting faint vibrations beneath the snow. Rodents move through hidden tunnels in the subnivean space, the narrow layer between ground and snow cover, where insulation traps slightly warmer air. The fox stiffens and leaps high, plunging headfirst into the drift. Snow bursts upward as it disappears completely. Moments later, it emerges with its muzzle dusted white. In the boreal realm, every movement is deliberate, every calorie accounted for. Camouflage, anatomy, instinct. Every adaptation is refined over millennia of winter. Here, survival is not a dramatic spectacle. It is quiet perseverance beneath the snow. Winter does not forgive visibility. On the open tundra, an Arctic hare crouches against the wind. Its body is compact, with shorter ears than its southern relatives. Less surface area and less heat loss. The fur that covers it is not simply white. It is dense, with thousands of fine layers that trap pockets of still air close to the skin. Air, once captured, becomes insulation. Each individual hair is hollow. That hollow core reduces weight while increasing thermal retention, creating a barrier against temperatures that can fall below -50 degrees Celsius. Beneath this outer layer, a thick undercoat retains heat. The hair crouches even lower, pressing itself into a shallow depression in the snow. It becomes a shape within a shape. The wind passes over it as if it were stone. Stillness is its shield. In the boreal forest, a snowshoe hare mirrors this strategy. It remains frozen mid-step, muscles tense, black eyes wide and unblinking. Against clean snow, its white coat merges with the landscape. A predator scanning the terrain searches for movement, not form. Survival depends on resisting the instinct to flee. Yet camouflage is not perfect. As winters subtly change, arriving later and retreating earlier, there are moments when snow recedes before coats darken. A white hair against the brown earth suddenly becomes visible. A flash of contrast in a predator's vision is enough. The mismatch lasts only days or weeks, but in nature, days are enough. Nearby, beneath the surface of a snowbank, life waits unseen. A willow ptarmigan is buried completely in the snow, protected from the wind. Paradoxically, snow insulates. Within its crystalline structure, air is trapped, softening extreme temperatures. Its plumage has turned white for the winter, and its feathers extend even over its legs like natural boots. When danger approaches, it bursts forth in an explosion of powder and wings, startling predators with the violence of its sudden ascent. Among the underbrush, a slender figure makes its way through tunnels dug beneath the snow layer. The stoat, also known as ermine, has changed from brown to white, except for the black tip of its tail. Its body is long and flexible, designed for pursuit in narrow spaces where mice and voles move through insulated corridors beneath the snow. Its metabolism is rapid, requiring constant hunting. Its camouflage allows it to approach within striking distance before delivering a precise and lethal bite. Not far away, a red fox listens. It tilts its head, moving its ears as it perceives a faint scratch. It calculates distance by sound alone. Then it leaps, an orange arc against the pale sky, before plunging headfirst into the drift. The snow erupts. Silence follows. The balance shifts once more. Camouflage in winter is more than just color. It is the density of fur. It is the structure of feathers. It is the shape of the body, metabolism, behavior. It is synchronization with light cycles and snowfall patterns. It is evolution written in pigments and proteins. Predators seek outlines. Prey erase them. In winter, visibility is critical for survival, and sound travels differently. Cold air is dense and carries echoes across frozen lakes and leafless forests. Snow absorbs footsteps, dampens impact, and softens the world, immersing it in a scene of stillness. For predators, this silence is an opportunity. A snowy owl drifts over the tundra at dusk. Its wings beat slowly and deliberately. Specialized feathers on the leading edges disrupt airflow, reducing turbulence. The result is near total silence. From below, the owl appears suspended, white against a fading sky, its yellow eyes scanning the surface for the slightest movement. It does not hurry. It waits. Far beneath the snow, a field mouse moves within its insulated tunnel. The owl's head tilts. Hearing guides what sight cannot see. With sudden precision, it folds its wings and drops, talons extended. The snow erupts in a column. For an instant, predator and landscape merge in a white eruption. Elsewhere in the boreal forest, the Canada lynx moves through shadow. Its stride is measured and economical. Each paw sinks only slightly, supported by large feet covered in dense fur for insulation. The lynx pauses often, not out of hesitation, but calculation. It relies on proximity. A burst, lasting only seconds, must end the chase quickly. Prolonged pursuit wastes energy that winter cannot afford. Ahead, a snowshoe hare feeds on twigs protruding from the snow. The lynx lowers its body until its belly nearly grazes the surface. Shoulder blades rise and fall beneath pale fur. The distance closes gradually. 10 meters, 8, 5. The forest holds its breath. In an instant, the lynx launches, driving powerfully with its hind legs and extending its front ones. Snow lifts into the air. Whether the attack succeeds or fails, the exchange is brief. Efficiency governs everything. Beyond the trees, on the open expanse of a frozen lake, grey wolves travel in formation. Their breath trails behind them like smoke. Their long legs and narrow chests allow sustained movement in deep snow. Unlike the lynx, wolves do not rely solely on stealth. They rely on endurance. A pack spreads slightly, reading each other's posture and adapting to invisible signals. They are not reckless. Each stride is controlled, conserving energy as they cover distance. They can travel dozens of kilometers in a single day, following tracks of moose or caribou. The frozen lake offers speed, and compacted snow allows longer, smoother strides. It is both road and hunting ground. The lead wolf slows. Ears forward. Tail steady. A decision passes silently through the group. The hunt will not be immediate. They continue, conserving strength for when weakness appears: a wounded leg, a straggling calf, an old bull. Here, predation is not spectacle, it is discipline. The silent glide of the owl, the measured advance of the lynx, the relentless movement of the wolf pack over ice. Each predator operates within strict limits imposed by temperature and terrain. Mistakes cost energy. Lost energy cannot be recovered. Winter sharpens instinct. And in this vast, frozen world, hunters move without sound, but never without purpose. Across the white frontier, wolves move like a single organism with many limbs. A pack is not a scattered gathering, it is a family. At the center is a breeding pair. Experienced leaders whose decisions determine direction, pace, and risk. Around them move their offspring from previous years, adolescents learning the discipline of the hunt, pups still developing, with long legs and dense winter coats. Hierarchy here is not theatrical dominance, it is structure. In winter, disorder wastes energy. The pack moves with noses close to the ground, weaving through frozen terrain. Scent lingers in cold air far longer than in summer heat. Each wolf inhales deeply, reading the invisible script written in the snow. A moose passed here at dawn. A hare crossed during the night. A rival pack skirted this valley 2 days ago. Breath rises from their muzzles in steady clouds. Frost gathers on their whiskers. Their double-layered coats, with coarse guard hairs and dense insulating underfur, retain heat, even as temperatures drop below -30 degrees Celsius. Fat reserves built in autumn now sustain them. Later the smell intensifies. Moose. An adult bull moose weighs nearly 10 times more than a wolf. Challenging such an animal risks injury. A broken rib or shattered leg means death in winter. Wolves do not seek the strongest, they seek weakness. The pack spreads slightly, increasing visibility. One wolf makes a wide circle to test the herd's response. The moose lift their massive heads, turning their ears and flaring their nostrils. Snow crunches under their weight as they reposition. The wolves watch for hesitation. An older cow lags behind. Her stride is shorter. A slight stiffness marks one hind leg. The pursuit begins, not recklessly, but controlled. Wolves are endurance hunters. Their long limbs and narrow builds allow efficient movement through snow. They do not run blindly. They apply pressure. Across a frozen marsh and through sparse vegetation, the wolves maintain distance, forcing the moose to expend energy. The snow deepens. The weaker animal begins to tire, sinking slightly with each step. Minutes stretch. Breathing thickens. Muscles burn. When the moment comes, it is decisive. One wolf lunges at the flank, another at the rear. The pack converges with expert coordination. What follows is quick, necessary. By dusk, the white ground shows marks of struggle, but also of sustenance. Every part of the prey will be consumed. Ravens gather in nearby trees, waiting their turn. Nothing is wasted. Winter allows no inefficiency. And yet, although wolves dominate this landscape through cooperation and endurance, their prey do not remain still. Across the plains and tundra of the north, entire herds are already on the move, responding to wind, snow depth, and the promise of distant grazing. The white frontier is not still. It is shifting, and something immense is in motion. From the horizon, they appear as movement before appearing as animals. A dark ribbon stretches across the white tundra, thousands of bodies flowing in synchronized and deliberate motion. Caribou. One of the largest land migrations on Earth, spreading across northern Canada in a slow, determined wave. Drone footage reveals the scale. The herd stretches for kilometers, dispersing and reorganizing around ridges, rivers, and wind-swept plains. From above, they resemble a living current, an artery pumping life through frozen ground. Each animal lowers its head as it walks, antlers angled forward and nostrils flared against the cold. Their hooves are wide and crescent-shaped, designed to distribute weight over soft snow. With each step, they dig through the crust in search of lichens, buried beneath layers of ice and drift. Lichen is not rich food. It is survival food. In winter, calories are scarce, and every bite matters. Deep snow changes everything. When snow rises above the knee, movement becomes laborious. Muscles strain with each step. Energy is consumed quickly. A caribou must balance distance traveled with calories consumed. If it moves too far without feeding, it will exhaust itself. If it remains too long in one place, food will vanish under competition. Among the herd are calves born the previous spring. Their legs are thinner and their reserves smaller. When snow thickens, they are the first to struggle. They move steadily, staying close to their mothers, relying on the collective movement of the herd to push forward. Migration is not random. It follows ancestral roots, embedded in instinct and memory. Generations have traveled these paths between calving and wintering grounds. Wind patterns, snow depth, and predator presence influence direction. The herd adapts like a single mind distributed across thousands of bodies, and always, at a distance, wolves watch. They do not rush blindly into the center. They follow the edges, alert to separation, a straggling calf, a wounded adult, a moment of disorder at a river crossing. Cooperation among wolves meets cooperation among caribou in a silent contest of endurance and synchronization. At a frozen river, the herd slows. The ice is thick but uneven. Hooves test the surface cautiously. Some animals slip, struggling to regain balance. Calves hesitate, gently pushed forward by the pressure of those behind. The crossing must be quick. Hesitation creates vulnerability. Across the tundra, snow swirls in low gusts around moving legs. Breath rises in unison, thousands of columns dissolving into the pale air. The sound is rhythmic, hooves pressing the crust, bodies moving, antlers brushing lightly. This migration is not a spectacle in itself, it is necessity. Without movement, food is depleted. Without coordination, predators prevail. Without endurance, winter prevails. Across the northern expanse of Canada, great herds advance, step by deliberate step, carrying with them the pulse of an ecosystem that refuses to stop. Winter seals the surface. Lakes that once rippled with wind and reflected the summer sky now lie beneath a hardened layer of ice, thick enough in some places to support trucks, cabins, and entire temporary villages. From above they appear dormant, silent, opaque, impenetrable. But beneath the ice, life continues in slow suspension. An under-ice camera descends through a drilled hole, sliding through white layers into a greenish twilight. The world below is dim, lit only by filtered light penetrating snow and ice above. Movement is deliberate. Fish do not move with the urgency of summer. They conserve. A northern pike appears, gliding before our eyes. Long and muscular, it moves with subtle body undulations, expending minimal energy. Its metabolism has slowed with the drop in water temperature. Cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. But winter presents a different challenge. Once ice seals the surface, no fresh oxygen enters from the atmosphere. The snow layer blocks sunlight, limiting photosynthesis of aquatic plants. As plants decompose and organisms respire, oxygen levels gradually decline. In shallow lakes, this can be lethal. The process is known as winter kill. When oxygen drops too low, fish suffocate in stagnant water, silently exhausting their habitat. In deeper lakes, such as Great Bear or Superior, large volumes buffer this collapse. Here, ecosystems persist in relative stability. Schools of perch hover near submerged structures. Lake trout patrol deeper channels. Each species occupies a niche defined by temperature and oxygen gradients, invisible to the naked eye, yet absolutely consequential. Above the ice, another kind of patience unfolds. Ice fishing huts dot the frozen surface like scattered stones. Inside, humans lower their lines into the dark water, waiting for the faint vibration of life. For northern communities, this is tradition and sustenance combined. Ice becomes a bridge between worlds. Not all hunters build shelters. River otters slide easily over snow, navigating ice holes along open stretches of current. Their dense fur, among the thickest of any mammal, traps air next to the skin, insulating them in water just degrees above freezing. They dive beneath the surface, bodies twisting with fluid agility. Underwater, they transform fast, playful, precise. Moments later, an otter surfaces with a fish clamped in its jaws, whiskers crusted with ice. Predation persists even here, beneath the frozen roof. Light filters through cracks in the ice. Bubbles cling to its underside like suspended stars. Sound travels differently underwater, muted, distant, isolated from the violence of storms. From the surface, winter suggests stillness. But beneath the ice there is movement without spectacle, survival without sunlight. A hidden network of organisms balancing oxygen, temperature, and time. Canada's winter does not end at the coast. It descends into the depths, where even beneath meters of ice, life refuses to yield. The north is not simply a direction, it is a reduction of options. Beyond the boreal forest, beyond the last wind-stunted trees, the land opens into tundra and fractured ocean. Here, winter is not a season, it is architecture. The Arctic edge is shaped by wind, salt, and sea ice, vast plates of frozen ocean that expand and contract with the rhythm of the planet. A polar bear moves through that shifting world. From a distance, it appears calm. Up close, every step is calculated. Its paws, nearly 30 centimeters wide, act like snowshoes, distributing weight across thin ice. Beneath a thick coat of fur lies black skin that absorbs the limited solar heat available. Fat, sometimes more than 10 centimeters thick, insulates against temperatures dropping below -40 degrees Celsius. But the bear does not walk the landscape. It walks in search of seals. Ringed seals maintain breathing holes in the ice, openings clawed out and revisited repeatedly. The bear knows this. It lowers its massive body beside a hole and waits. Stillness becomes strategy. Hours may pass. Here, patience is a way of controlling hunger. Sea ice is not just terrain. It is a hunting platform. Without it, polar bears cannot access their primary prey. Swimming long distances drains their energy reserves. On land, food is scarce and nutritionally inadequate compared to the fat-rich seals that sustain them. Their entire biology, the shape of the skull, the digestive system, and seasonal fasting cycles is tuned to a frozen ocean. Movement ripples along the ice edge. An Arctic fox trots in, compact and alert. In winter, its coat turns bright white, blending with the snow. Unlike the bear, the fox is opportunistic. It follows predators, seeking scraps from seal kills. Its hearing is sharp enough to detect rodents moving beneath the snow layer. When hunting alone, it leaps and dives headfirst into snowbanks, emerging with lemmings clenched between its sharp teeth. Adaptability is its currency. If sea ice retreats, the fox can pivot, feeding on bird eggs, carrion, and even human waste near settlements. But its larger competitor, the red fox, expands farther north as the climate warms. The Arctic fox survives through cold. If the cold is removed, competition intensifies. Beneath the ice, seals navigate a labyrinth of submerged passages. Their bodies are designed for this world. Streamlined, insulated with fat, capable of lowering their heart rate during dives. Pups are born on stable ice platforms and are raised with relative safety from marine predators. But that stability depends on timing. The ice must form early enough and maintain sufficient thickness to support the next generation. The Arctic edge is dynamic. Sea ice fractures into floes that collide and scrape against each other, reshaping coastlines overnight. Open channels appear suddenly, attracting seals and the bears that follow them. From above, a polar bear crosses a mosaic of white and blue, each step a negotiation with an increasingly thin surface. This is not simply a desert, it is dependence. Every creature here is tied to sea ice, physically, behaviorally, and evolutionarily. The ice determines migratory routes, hunting success, and reproductive cycles. When it contracts, the map of survival is redrawn. And farther north still, beyond the continental shelf, the ice extends into the open Arctic Ocean, an expanse where winter reigns longer, and the margin between endurance and collapse narrows into a shifting line of frozen sea. By late winter, the landscape is stripped of generosity. Snow hides deeper. The days lengthen, but the warmth does not arrive. For months, survival has depended on stored energy. The fat accumulated beneath the skin and the calories gathered during brief periods of abundance. Now those reserves are running out. A moose moves slowly through crusted snow. In autumn, its massive shoulders gave it strength. By late winter, its ribs press faintly against the skin. Each step breaks through hardened drifts, consuming precious energy. The animal feeds on bark and twigs, woody material low in nutrients and difficult to digest. Its rumen, a fermentation chamber of microbes, extracts what it can, but digestion itself requires energy. Survival becomes a calculation. Calories gained versus calories spent. When the snow becomes dense and icy, mere movement becomes a punishment. Nearby, a fox digs. It hears something beneath the snow layer, a faint rustle, perhaps a vole moving through subnivean tunnels, the hidden world between the ground and the snow. The fox leaps and plunges headfirst into the snow. It emerges with empty jaws. It tries again and again. Each failed attempt consumes energy that cannot be easily recovered. The end of winter is a merciless arithmetic. Predators feel it too. A lynx, once fluid and silent, misses an attack. Snowshoe hares, thin but still agile, run across the snowbanks. The lynx stops, its sides heaving. Hunting success declines as prey populations fluctuate. In cyclical systems like the boreal forest, hare numbers rise and fall naturally. When the hare population declines, lynx starve. The pattern is ancient, measurable both in fur trade records and ecological data, a 10-year pulse of boom and scarcity. Above, ravens circle. They are the auditors of winter. Highly intelligent and socially complex, ravens track predators not to help them, but to inherit. A pack of wolves brings down a weakened deer. The ravens descend within minutes. Their black bodies speckle the white expanse. Here, nothing is wasted. Scavengers are not opportunists in a moral sense, but integral recyclers of energy, redistributing what death provides. But sometimes there is nothing to recycle. A carcass lies half buried, stripped to its bones. The wind sculpts the snow into soft ridges around it. The body is evidence of a season that tests limits. Starvation is not dramatic. It is gradual. Fat reserves are depleted first. Then muscle tissue is metabolized. Organs begin to fail. Animals become lethargic, more vulnerable to predation. A thin moose becomes a target. Wolves perceive weakness not out of cruelty, but efficiency. In midwinter, the pack cannot afford prolonged chases. They select individuals already vulnerable. This is not brutality, it is constraint. The cold slows microbial decomposition. Carcasses freeze quickly and are preserved in ice. With the arrival of spring, thawing releases nutrients that return to the soil and water. Death at the end of winter seeds life in early summer. The system sustains itself, but barely. The season of hunger exposes the narrow margin within which northern ecosystems operate. A few degrees colder, heavier than usual snow. Misaligned prey cycles, small changes that cascade. The margin between survival and collapse is measured in calories and time. Now the light lingers longer on the horizon. Yet perseverance, not optimism, drives the season. In these final weeks of winter, life persists not through strength, but through the quiet conservation of what little remains. The storm does not arrive gently. It advances like a wall. On the horizon, sky and land dissolve into a single, shifting white mass. The wind rises first, a slight vibration among the spruce branches, a whispered warning across frozen lakes. Then, the air thickens. Snow lifts from the ground, spiraling upward, joining what falls from above. Direction disappears. A whiteout is not simply heavy snowfall. It is the elimination of contrast. The world becomes unfathomable. Shadows vanish. The horizon collapses. Even distance betrays sight. A solitary tree, 50 meters away, appears swallowed by fog. Movement becomes instinctive. Orientation becomes a matter of guesswork. The wind lashes the plains at 50, 60, 70 kilometers per hour. Loose snow erodes exposed surfaces like sand. Ice crystals sting the skin. Sound is distorted, muffled by snow in the air. Silence and roar coexist. In the boreal forest, the trees bend. The black spruce, narrow and resilient, bends under the accumulated weight. Branches creak. Ice forms a glassy layer around the needles. With freezing rain, rare but devastating, liquid water coats the bark and refreezes instantly, encasing trunks in crystalline armor. The added mass strains the wood fibers to the breaking point. A crack echoes through the forest. A limb collapses and sinks into the snowbanks below. For animals, moving during such a storm is a risk. A moose turns its broad back to the wind, lowering its head. Its thick winter coat, with hollow, insulating guard hairs, traps a layer of still air against the skin. Snow accumulates along its spine, forming a white ridge that further reduces heat loss. To the observer, the animal appears sculpted into the landscape itself. Stillness is strategy. A red fox seeks the leeward side of a fallen trunk. It curls its tail over its snout, minimizing exposed surface area. Beneath the snow, voles continue moving through their insulated tunnel system, protected from the harshest wind. The subnivean space, an invisible network of air pockets and vegetation, becomes their refuge. Above ground, birds cluster. A flock of chickadees huddles in a dense spruce forest. They reduce their metabolic rate during the night, entering controlled hypothermia. Body temperature drops slightly to conserve energy. At dawn, they shiver to warm up. Here, survival is not about resisting, it is about adapting. On the open tundra, caribou gather, their backs aligned against the gale. Wolves halt their patrols. Even predators withdraw when the wind erases scent trails and blinds pursuit. The storm is impartial. It is a challenge for both hunter and prey. Snow accumulates rapidly, reshaping the terrain in a matter of hours. Familiar paths vanish. Tracks disappear. Rivers freeze and thicken. Lakes groan under pressure as shifting ice plates grind against each other with a deep, resonant rumble, like distant thunder trapped beneath the surface. Hours pass, then a day, then another, and slowly the wind eased, the snow settled. Light filtered through dispersing clouds. The world emerged transformed, smooth, simplified, dangerous in new ways. New drifts concealed obstacles. Ice-coated branches reflected the pale sun like fractured mirrors. The storm has passed, but its consequences persist. For some, it meant shelter and endurance. For others, exhaustion and loss. In the Canadian winter, weather is not a mere detail. It is architect, sculptor, and executioner. And it never ends. Farther west, the terrain rises. The boreal forest fractures into ridges of rock and snow. Peaks rise into the air, their summits stripped by a wind that never fully rests. The Canadian Rockies in winter are not gentle landscapes. They are vertical worlds, inclined, unstable, magnificent. Here, gravity is as dangerous as the cold. On a steep alpine slope, a mountain goat stands motionless. Its specialized hooves, with hard outer edges and soft, rubbery pads, grip ledges no wider than a human hand. Below them, hundreds of meters of emptiness drop toward shadowed valleys. The goat lowers its head to scrape wind-blown lichen from exposed rock. Food is scarce at this altitude. Snow buries the grass. Shrubs lie entombed. Survival favors those willing to climb where others cannot. The wind combs its dense winter coat. Beneath its long guard hairs lies a thick layer of wool that retains heat, even as temperatures fall below freezing. Snow accumulates on its back, but the goat does not shake it off. Movement wastes energy. Above the tree line, avalanches write their own rules. A distant crack resounds across the slope, sharp and sudden. A slab of snow fractures and slides, accelerating, transforming into a roaring cascade. Entire slopes reorganize in seconds. For animals navigating these inclines, attention is constant. Moose and goats instinctively avoid heavily loaded slopes, preferring wind-scoured ridges where the snowpack is less volatile. In lower valleys, moose gather in sheltered basins. Their breath rises in pale columns as they dig through hardened snow to reach frozen grass. Grazing provides vigilance. Their ears turn at the slightest sound, muscles tense at any distant movement. In these mountains, silence conceals more than wind. A cougar watches from above. Unlike wolves, it hunts alone. Its body is built for ambush. Powerful hind legs coiled like springs, and its tail balancing every subtle movement. Snow muffles its approach. Step by step, it descends along a rocky outcrop, staying within shadows cast by the fading light. Moose have few defenses. Their strength lies in endurance and size, not stealth. When the cougar attacks, it does so explosively, launching from a height that closes distance in seconds. A successful attack must be precise. Energy cannot be wasted in prolonged chases through deep snow. Predation here is shaped by terrain. Cliffs offer advantage. Ravines channel movement. Snow depth determines who runs and who sinks. Even wind direction influences the outcome, carrying scent uphill or dispersing it into the empty sky. Below, river valleys trace dark lines through white expanses. Ice forms along their edges, but currents continue beneath, creating pockets of open water. Life persists in these narrow corridors, willows feeding moose, tracks etched in snow at crossings. The Rockies demand adaptation not only to cold, but also to altitude and danger. Oxygen decreases with elevation. Weather shifts abruptly. A clear morning can turn into a blinding gale by afternoon. Survival strategies here differ from those of the forest or tundra. Mobility is vertical. Shelter is often stone. As night falls over the rugged peaks, alpenglow paints the summits in fleeting crimson. The cougar drags its prey toward cover. Mountain goats retreat to wind-carved ledges. Moose huddle to shield themselves from the approaching darkness. In this biome, winter is amplified by altitude, and every step carries consequences. Winter seems empty. Wide shots reveal silence. White fields stretch unbroken beneath a pale sky. Large animals move slowly, if at all. But beneath the surface, life hums in miniature. Beneath the snow, another world exists. It is called the subnivean zone, where sub means beneath and nivea means snow. When early winter snow falls lightly and remains undisturbed, it traps air between crystals. That trapped air insulates the ground. While surface air may drop to -30 or -40 degrees Celsius, temperatures beneath the snow often hover around the freezing point. It is not warm, but it is survivable. A cross-section reveals tunnels carved between the ground and the snow layer. Narrow corridors wind among grasses and roots. Here, voles move almost constantly, radiating precious heat from their small bodies within a confined space. A vole pauses, whiskers trembling. Its heart beats astonishingly fast, hundreds of times per minute. Such a high metabolism demands constant feeding. Bark anything within reach becomes sustenance. Snow protects it from owls and foxes, but protection is never absolute. The ceiling trembles. Above, something has heard it. A red fox tilts its head, triangulating sound beneath layers of white. It leaps and plunges downward, breaking the roof of the subnivean world. Sometimes it emerges triumphant, sometimes with an empty mouth. For the vole, survival depends on milliseconds and the complexity of a maze. Lemmings share this hidden realm. In tundra regions, their populations rise and fall dramatically over the years, cyclical pulses that ripple through entire ecosystems. When lemmings are abundant, snowy owls thrive. Arctic foxes raise larger litters. When their numbers decline, predators struggle. The smallest mammals determine the fate of the largest hunters. And then there is the weasel. Long, slender, relentless. In winter, its coat turns white, an ermine that blends perfectly with the snow. Its body is built for infiltration. Unlike foxes, it does not break into tunnels from above. It slips inside them. The same narrow passages that protect voles become hunting grounds for a predator shaped like a ribbon of muscle in motion. Within the subnivean labyrinth, escape routes are limited. Above ground, chickadees endure the cold differently. A small black-capped chickadee perches on a spruce branch. It fluffs its feathers, doubling their thickness by trapping air between layers. Feathers serve not only for flight, but also as adjustable insulation. At night, chickadees enter a state of regulated hypothermia, lowering their body temperature several degrees to conserve energy. At dawn, they must warm rapidly. They store food tirelessly in autumn, thousands of seeds hidden in bark crevices. Their memory is precise. In the harshest weeks of winter, those hidden reserves become vital resources. The microworld is fragile. Thick ice layers can collapse tunnels. Freeze-thaw cycles can flood the subnivean space. A year with little snow exposes rodents to constant predation. A deep, stable snowpack offers refuge. Scale alters perception. From above, winter appears still and lifeless. Beneath a few centimeters of snow, an entire civilization persists, breathing, hunting, reproducing, and dying. Heat exchanges occur. Energy transfers. Predation continues in miniature. The survival of giants depends on the survival of the small. Because beneath the snow, winter is not empty, it is full. When the sun slips behind the tree line, winter tightens its grip. Daylight in northern latitudes is brief, faint, almost hesitant, but night arrives with authority. As solar warmth fades, temperatures plunge rapidly, sometimes 10 degrees in a single hour. The little heat stored in snow and ground radiates back into the atmosphere, escaping into the clear Arctic sky. The cold deepens in darkness. Breath thickens instantly. Frost crystals bloom on whiskers and fur. Ice reforms along river edges that briefly softened under afternoon light. The world hardens, and then the sky begins to move. A green light ripples along the horizon, subtle at first, like mist lit from within. Then it intensifies, unfolding into curtains that sway and twist above the frozen land. The aurora borealis, born of charged solar particles colliding with Earth's magnetic field, ignites the upper atmosphere in luminous arcs. It is silent. No crackling, no roaring, only motion without sound. Beneath this shifting canopy, wolves travel. Their bodies cast long shadows under moonlight, reflected on snow. In the darkness, their senses sharpen. Scent carries farther in the cold, dense air. 13. Their paws move silently over the snowdrifts. The pack spreads out, each individual interpreting signals invisible to human perception. A distant howl breaks the silence. It is not just a call, it is coordination. The sound travels efficiently across the frozen expanses. The pack regroups, restructuring its geometry in the night. Up above, a snowy owl perches on a frost-covered branch. Moonlight illuminates its pale feathers, making it almost spectral. Unlike daytime hunters, it thrives in the dimness. Its eyes, large and forward-facing, capture movement across the open tundra. Its hearing detects faint scratches beneath the snow. As it takes off, its wings cut through the air in silence. The feathers are designed for silence. The leading edges are serrated, breaking up turbulence. The owl descends, disappearing into white. Moments later, it rises again, with its prey cornered. Even the smallest creatures modify their behavior after nightfall. Voles venture cautiously through snow tunnels. Weasels patrol constantly, using the darkness to surprise. Chickadees settle into dense conifers, their feathers fluffed for maximum insulation. Their tiny hearts slow slightly as they conserve energy during the longest hours. The night magnifies vulnerability. Without sunlight, no warmth offsets heat loss. Clear skies, though beautiful, allow thermal radiation to escape unhindered. It is during these calm, starry nights that temperatures often drop to their lowest level. Ice cracks in the lakes as the sheets, expanding, contract and shift. The sound reverberates like distant percussion, deep, resonant, alive. Frost forms intricate patterns on exposed rock, crystalline structures that grow with geometric precision. Above it all, the auroral light pulses and fades. The sky becomes a canvas of physics. The solar wind meets the magnetosphere. Energy translates into color. It is a reminder that even here, at the edge of survival, the planet is not isolated. It is connected to forces far beyond its frozen surface. Slowly the horizon pales. The night retreats reluctantly, the aurora dims, dissolving into the morning grey. The animals withdraw for cover or continue their search for sustenance, as relentless in darkness as in light. In the frozen world, night does not bring rest. It brings another test. Winter once followed a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. Freeze, sustain, thaw, return. For generations, the cadence remained predictable. Lakes sealed early. Snow accumulated gradually. Rivers sank into silence. Animals synchronized their migrations and reproductive cycles with this constant pattern. Now, subtly, that rhythm changes. A January thaw arrives unexpectedly. For 2 days, temperatures rise above freezing. The snow softens. Meltwater seeps beneath crusted surfaces. Then, just as quickly, the cold returns. Refreezing creates a hardened layer over fields and forests. For a moose, this crust can cut its legs as it moves. For elk, it makes foraging more difficult. For predators, it alters the process of pursuit, sometimes supporting the weight of a wolf while collapsing under the prey. These freeze-thaw cycles alter the texture. Snow, which once remained powdery and insulating, becomes layered, soft below and brittle above. The subnivean world compresses. Vole tunnels collapse more easily. Air pockets shrink. Insulation weakens. Above the ground, camouflage falters. A snowshoe hare remains motionless beside a patch of exposed ground. Its coat has already turned white, driven mainly by day length rather than temperature. But the snow cover arrived late this year, or melted early. Against the brown ground, the hare's winter coat becomes visible. Predators notice the contrast. The Canada lynx relies heavily on sight during close pursuit. Even a slight mismatch increases the risk of detection. The hare's biology evolved under conditions where snow presence and coat color aligned reliably. When timing shifts, vulnerability increases, not dramatically overnight, but gradually, season after season. Farther north, sea ice forms later. Satellite records show interannual variability, but in some regions, freezing begins days or weeks after historical averages. Thinner ice develops in marginal zones. Polar bears approach openings in the ice with caution. Areas that once consistently supported their weight now fracture unpredictably. A bear tests the surface with slow steps. Cracks spread like a web. The platform holds, for now. On frozen lakes in the south, ice roads open later in winter and close earlier in spring. The difference can be measured in days, but those days matter for wildlife crossings, for communities transporting supplies, and for predators tracking prey along established corridors. Spring breakup can arrive abruptly. Early thaws flood low tundra before migratory caribou complete their crossing. Calving grounds shift subtly over time. In some regions, insects emerge earlier, altering feeding windows for birds that hatch when food availability peaks. None of this appears catastrophic on its own. The forest still stands, wolves still howl, snow still falls in deep drifts across the plains of Saskatchewan and the slopes of the Rocky Mountains. But the patterns, the silent agreements between climate and biology, are becoming less certain. Resilience exists. Species adapt within certain limits. Arctic foxes adjust their diet. Moose shift their range slightly. Some birds alter their migration timing by days or weeks. However, adaptation has limits defined by physiology and evolutionary pace. Winter remains powerful. It still dominates vast stretches of Canada, but its boundaries blur in some places. The cold arrives differently. It leaves differently. And in these subtle deviations, the frozen world reveals that even the most enduring season is not entirely immutable. At first, the change is barely perceptible. The sun lingers a few minutes longer above the horizon. Shadows stretch differently across the snow. The light, once pale and distant, takes on a warmer tone, less blue, more golden. At northern latitudes, daylight does not return gradually. It accelerates. Each sunrise arrives earlier, each sunset retreats later. The solar arc climbs in the sky and, with it, the energy balance begins to shift. Snow still dominates the landscape, but its surface softens. Icicles hanging from spruce branches begin to drip at a steady pace. Meltwater collects along the edges of rooftops in northern settlements, falling in clear drops that reflect the light. By midday, the top layer of snow loosens and the grains transform into slush. At night, temperatures drop again, and the surface refreezes, forming delicate crystalline patterns. This daily freeze-thaw cycle marks the transition. Rivers respond first. Beneath the thick ice, the current has flowed all winter, carving invisible channels. Now, pressure builds. Dark streaks appear along the midcourse. A crack forms and then widens. Ice plates shift and collide, roaring with a deep, resonant force. Finally, the surface fractures completely and water emerges into the open air for the first time in months. The sound is unmistakable. Movement replaces stillness. A moose stands at the edge of a thawing marsh. Snow retreats in irregular patches, revealing flattened grasses and the first exposed shoots. The animal lowers its head, pulling nutrient-rich aquatic plants that were absent from its winter browsing. Its coat, once thick and insulating, will soon begin to shed. Energy returns slowly. Caribou herds pause along migration routes as the ground softens. Moose descend from wind-scoured ridges toward emerging forage. Chickadees sing more frequently, their notes sharper in the warmer air. Even predators change their behavior. Wolves travel longer distances as their prey spreads across an expanding habitat. Lynx track new movements in the undergrowth. Snowshoe hares, still white in some areas, begin to regain their brown coloration, adapting once again to changing terrain. In the Arctic, sea ice remains extensive, but sunlight persists over it for longer hours. The angle of the light transforms the landscape, casting long, luminous reflections across pressure ridges and frozen channels. The return of the sun does not abruptly end winter. Cold nights continue. Snowstorms still sweep across the plains, but the intensity has changed. Solar radiation now exceeds what darkness once retained. Heat accumulates gradually in the ground, in the water, in the rock. The frozen cathedral begins to breathe. Icicles fall, snowbanks shrink. Subnivean tunnels collapse as insulation melts, exposing voles and lemmings once again to the open. The challenges of survival change form instead of disappearing. Hope here is not sentimental. It is thermodynamic. Energy returns to the system, photosynthesis will resume, insects will hatch, rivers will flow freely. After months of endurance, the land shifts from conservation to growth. Winter loosens its grip, not as a sign of defeat, but of completion. Because in the far north of Canada, even the most brutal cold eventually gives way to light. When winter finally loosens its grip, it does not do so evenly. It leaves evidence. Across the boreal forest, tracks reappear in the softening snow. Some belong to those who endured, wolves lean but intact, moose scarred yet standing, foxes that navigated hunger and storm. Others end abruptly in shallow depressions, half filled by drifting snow. Survival here was never guaranteed. It was earned. A bull moose moves slowly through a thawing clearing. Along its flank, a patch of fur has not regrown where ice once cut it. One ear bears a notch from a previous encounter. Its ribs are visible, yet it stands. Winter removed the excess. What remains is efficiency. Not all moose reached this moment. In a sheltered hollow, bones lie scattered where scavengers worked months earlier. Ravens, foxes, and beetles will complete the process as warmth returns. Nutrients are recycled back into the soil. Spring grasses will sprout from ground enriched by loss. In the Rockies, a herd of elk emerges from the tree line. Fewer calves follow than in autumn. Deep snow and a cougar's ambush altered their numbers. The survivors move forward cautiously, but steadily, toward fresh forage. Over the tundra, a snowy owl watches patches of thawed ground. Lemming populations have declined this year. Some nests will remain unbuilt. The absence of small mammals ripples through the food web, altering reproductive success and shifting territorial patterns. The arithmetic of winter has been calculated. Among wolves, the pack remains united, but smaller. One subordinate did not recover from an injury sustained during a hunt on the ice. The rest move on. Their bonds strengthened, not by sentiment, but by necessity. Cooperation proved decisive. Isolation would not have. The Arctic fox that foraged along the edges of sea ice now sheds its white coat in irregular patches, with brown appearing underneath. It survived on scraps, on cached food, on an instinct refined across generations. Sea ice retreats slowly away from the coast. Polar bears that hunted successfully accumulated enough fat to survive the coming months on land. Others, less fortunate, travel longer distances in search of opportunity. In this environment, luck and skill intertwine. The scars of winter are visible everywhere. Branches broken by ice storms cover the forest floor. Avalanche paths carve channels into mountain slopes. Coastlines eroded by ice reveal exposed rock where frozen waves once pressed relentlessly. Even rivers bear marks, their banks reshaped by ice breakup and debris deposited in new patterns. Even so, the system persists. Winter removed the weak, the unlucky, the unprepared. It sharpened instincts, tested endurance, reduced populations to sustainable limits. What remains is not abundance, but a recalibrated balance. There is no triumphant music in this moment, only continuation. Life did not conquer winter, it negotiated with it, it absorbed its costs, it adapted where it could, and yielded where it was necessary. The frozen months demanded precision, in time, in the use of energy, in behavior. Those who find themselves in the lengthening light have passed through the narrowest gate of the year, and their presence now is proof that in the most brutal cold of Canada, survival is not taken for granted. It was achieved. Winter is not an interruption here. It is identity. From the Atlantic provinces to the Yukon, from the horizons of the prairies to the Arctic sea ice, the cold has shaped the architecture of the land and life. Forests grow slowly because of it. Rivers run clear because frost keeps them still for months. Animal migrations follow routes marked not by roads, but by the depth of snow and the freeze lines. Even human rhythms submit to its authority. Communities prepare months in advance, insulating homes, storing fuel, adapting travel to ice roads and snowy trails. Sports, traditions, diets, stories. Many are born from endurance rather than escape. Winter festivals illuminate the dark weeks. Ice becomes canvas, playground, highway. The cold does not only test resilience, it defines it. The wildlife here reflects that same authorship. The seasonal transformation of the snowshoe hare, the enormous paws of the lynx distributing its weight over the snow. The metabolic design of the polar bear adapted to sea ice. Chickadees reducing their body temperature during the longest nights. Caribou migrating across frozen expanses older than memory. These are not accidents. They are responses, the reaction of evolution to a persistent constraint. The cold limits growth, but it also facilitates survival. In ecosystems where resources disappear for half the year, waste is punished, excess is temporary. Efficiency becomes elegance. Even the landscapes bear the signature of winter. Glaciers carved valleys that now hold lakes. Cycles of freezing and thawing fracture rock and turn it into soil. Ice storms prune forests. The accumulated snowpack stores water that feeds rivers in spring. Without winter, Canada would not look as it does. Its geography, its biodiversity, and even its silence would be different. There is severity here, yes. Blizzards erase paths. Freezing sets in within minutes. Hunger narrows limits to their tightest point. Yet within that severity lies structure. Patterns repeat. Species adapt. Life persists not in spite of winter, but because it has learned to move within its limits. And in recent years, subtle changes remind us how precise that balance is. When freeze lines shift, when snow arrives late or leaves early, the choreography adjusts. The cold remains intense, but its rhythm changes. Even so, across vast northern territories, winter acts as architect. It sculpts the density of fur and the shape of hooves. It dictates migration and hibernation. It shapes culture, patience, and endurance. It demands respect and rewards precision. Canada does not freeze by accident. It is forged by frost. And in the end, winter does not conquer the land. It shapes it. In northern Canada, winter remains intense and formidable. But it is changing. In the Arctic, average temperatures are rising at approximately twice the global rate. Sea ice continues to form each year, although it often arrives later and retreats earlier. The hunting platform, on which polar bears depend, is gradually narrowing with the passage of days. It has not disappeared, but it has been altered. Subtly, persistently. Caribou migrations, once synchronized with predictable cycles of freezing and thawing, now face shifting signals. Rivers break earlier. Ice crossings become uncertain. Calving grounds warm at a different pace than the lichens and forage herds depend on. Migration is a choreography of timing. When these diverge, energy costs increase. Farther south, ice road seasons are shortening. In remote regions, winter roads that cross frozen lakes and lakes serve as lifelines, transporting fuel and supplies to northern communities. When ice thickens later or thaws earlier, the window for a safe route narrows. What was once routine becomes conditional. Species respond in motion. Red foxes expand northward, overlapping with Arctic fox territory. Moose move into the tundra, where shrubs grow with rising temperatures. Insects emerge earlier in spring, altering the feeding patterns of birds, which arrive based on daylight rather than warmth. None of this is theatrical. It still snows, blizzards still strike, wolves still cross frozen lakes under aurora-lit skies. Winter remains unstoppable. However, balance in cold ecosystems depends on the alignment between temperature and coat change, between ice formation and migration, between freezing and access. In Canada's harshest winter, survival has never been a matter of dominance. It has always been a matter of balance. And in a warming world, balance becomes increasingly difficult to maintain.